sometimes I see videos or pictures of, people standing on the horses laying down and even with the whip clacking. That for me, it really does not respect the dignity of the horse.
Gabi, how can we find the motivation to play with our horses?
Don't say work, play with your horse. Feeling playful with the horse is not about jumping around for the wild. And I can build connection by communicating a very simple task to the horse.
So for you, Gabi, what is play with a horse? How important is horse-human play? And if we switch our mindset to play rather than work with our horse, how will that increase our progress in our training sessions? Well, Gabi Neurohr is a horse trainer from Austria who is passionate about empathy, understanding, and creating a happy equine partner for life. A horse that loves spending time with its owner. Gabi has launched a course called No Matter the Weather. Creative, purposeful, fun games to learn with your horse, despite the summer heat or the winter rain, lack of time, or a lack of arena. And we all struggle with at least one of those, don't we? Stick around until the end of the podcast, as Gabi will be giving free access to her course to one lucky Curious Equestrian subscriber. Let's jump in, shall we? Gabi, welcome to Curious Equestrian.
Super happy to be here today.
Gabi, when were you first inspired to start bringing play into your work with horses?
That is really hard to say. I think the very first time that I got introduced to playing rather than working seriously was when I first got to hear about the Pirelli method, actually, in 2007. And he always said, don't say work, play with your horse, because it puts you in a different frame of mind. You got to be much more lighthearted, not take it so serious, and, not get so cramped up on having everything perfect. But still, until I went to really kind of play, it still took a few years until I could really embrace that attitude.
And how much more can we progress with our horses when we change our mindset and think about playing rather than working?
I think along the fact that we don't get so focused on detail and getting things perfect. Well, horses like a light attitude. Horses like to feel us happy and open and lighthearted. And if horses feel that energy, they're going to be much more open to connecting and to listening because they love that energy. Because I think, humans are predators, right? And one quality of a predator, even if you're vegan, one quality of a predator is to get tunnel vision when things get difficult. And then we have a predator attitude, and this is what triggers horses. And that's when they disconnect and can't listen anymore. So when, for example, you have a session with your horse and things don't go as planned, and your predator thing kicks in, even without you noticing, you get the tunnel vision. You kind of over-focus on the one task to get it perfect. And this then totally ruins the atmosphere with the horse. You lose the lightheartedness, and usually that's when you end the session on, frustration. And this is where the attitude of play makes everything a lot lighter.
So do you think the first step in playing with our horses is changing our attitude, changing our spirit and our energy as we enter the field or the arena or the school?
Yes, but we can't do that with a push of a button, unfortunately. And especially in the equestrian world, working with a horse is always so serious, serious business. And we are so critical with ourselves, and we feel judged so easily by others because, in the equestrian world, judgment is present everywhere. You can post the nicest video on social media and somebody will find the hair in a soup and judge you. And no wonder people get so serious and kind of lose the lightheartedness with their horses. And that
Isn't that
kills the
true?
enjoyment, I think. And why do we have horses? Because you want to enjoy them and have fun with them and enjoy the relationship, right? Yeah.
Isn't that true? Whether it's on
Yeah.
social media or whether it's in a riding school environment or at a livery yard,
It's
there's always
everywhere.
someone
It's horrible.
watching and waiting to bring you down in the equestrian world. Why do you think there is that judgment ready and waiting in the equestrian world for us? Why is everyone so judgmental?
I don't know. I think maybe it has a lot to do with our upbringing and that we tie our self worth to the opinion of others and that we tie our self worth on being right.
Mm,
And especially with horses, I mean, there's so many ways to do things with a horse. Even what works with one horse might not work with the other horse with the same person or on the same day, you know?
yeah.
So there's so many different ways, and it's a human innate drive or need to be right. It is, those arguments where every person wants to have the last word. I think this is something innate in human nature. And this, I think, leads to so many arguments in the equestrian world. And, also right now, the debate about, that there's more debate about equine welfare and that horses are treated fairly. I love that. I appreciate it. But it also leads to a lot of very harsh criticism, or
Mm.
even more.
Isn't it
Yeah.
interesting? Because we can say this about humans in every sphere, whether it's in a
Mm,
workplace environment, whether it's in social settings, whether it's parents or dog parents. But
mm,
with horses, why is it that we never think to play with our horse? And yet we will always think about playing with our dogs, won't we? When people get a puppy, oh, play with your puppy, play with your dog, take it to the park, teach it tricks,
mm.
teach it to fetch the ball, give it good exercise, but play and enjoy your dog, enjoy your
Yeah.
cat, play. But with your horses, it's never talked about as if it isn't a pet, as if it isn't part
Mhm.
of the family. Why do you think that there is such a reputation amongst horse ownership that we don't play with these animals?
It's a really good question. I think for sure there is the fact that a horse is a totally different caliber than a dog. A horse is 600 kilograms, 1,200 pounds. It's a lot more unpredictable. It's a lot stronger than a dog. Most dogs you can, grab and control physically. You can't do that with a horse. And I think there then often is the factor of fear involved, even if you don't admit or people aren't aware of it consciously, and that keeps them from freely playing, from freely exploring the relationship,
Mm,
I think.
yeah.
And I think there's also the fear of, what if I play and I teach my horse wrong things? It might get dangerous. What is true?
So for you, Gabby, what is play with a horse? Just describe it for us, for those listening. What does that look like?
So I think there's a big difference when you play with a puppy, when you play with a horse. Horse play is not the same as dog play. And I also have a lot of clients, or I see a lot of people, they want to play with the horse or feel that the horse has a playful attitude, is motivated, and they confuse it to have it motivated and playful like a puppy. It's not the same.
Mm.
All right. I actually rarely ever want to have that kind of puppy playful attitude with a horse because it's plain dangerous. Okay, so it is different. Um, it's not like you're throwing a ball and the horse is galloping behind and jumping around happy. It's more a super light-hearted interaction. I really feel like you're talking to the horse. The horse is happily engaged, voluntarily engaged. You feel like when you're asking the horse a question, the response comes immediately. The ears are forward, looking at you, really motivated. Yeah, but there still have to be some certain rules of safety in place. If they are not in place, it can easily become dangerous and go out of hand.
What rules, what safety aspects do you bring in, Gabby, to make sure everyone stays safe?
So, what for me is really important is to start out with a healthy, functioning relationship. And to have a good relationship for a horse, for a lot of people, it just means the horse loves them, loves coming to them, and then they forget about personal space and boundaries.
Mm.
Because they worry about if I insist on boundaries to my horse, but personal space, my horse might not like me so much anymore. But then the relationship is going to be very lopsided
Yeah.
and also not very safe, right? Because a horse still has a certain weight, a certain strength, and we need to have those boundaries in place. Otherwise, to go into play energy easily becomes dangerous.
Mm.
So I need to have in place a very good understanding towards the horse about my boundaries, and I need to stand in my shoes as a leader. I need to have a certain presence and confidence, and then horses will automatically respect my space and not push on me. So
Yeah.
that is a really big aspect to be safe when we enter into play with horses, I think.
And just describe for us some of the play games that you do with your horses that we can as well.
Yeah. So my queen of my no my king of games is Maserati, my youngest.
Great name.
Oh, he loves all the games. he
Oh.
knows he knows how to unroll a carpet. He can honk a horn. He can dress
Oh.
himself. He loves to put on the saddle and hold the saddle pad like this. He comes sideways under it. I can walk away with the bridle and the bit, and he walks behind to chase the bit, for example. Um,
Oh.
he loves those sort of games. He loves to play football.
Oh.
Yeah.
And how do you teach a horse to play football? Because it's hard, isn't it, to encourage a horse to kick the
Mm,
ball?
Actually, it's actually pretty simple. So you need to know how you can trigger a horse's curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to use principles of positive reinforcement. So you're going to mark the word, mark the behavior you want to see more from the
Mm-hmm.
horse with the mark word or the click. If you use a clicker, use the click. I don't use a clicker because I want to have my hands free.
Yeah.
So I just say good boy or yes.
Oh.
Um, and most horses in the beginning, when you present the big ball, for example, they're gonna be scared because horses, prey animals, anything new and moves, oh my god, scared. So, but if you manage to trigger curiosity, then horses will become confident. You can trigger curiosity if you just move the scary thing away. Anything that moves away is not gonna be scary. The horse will start to follow. You click that behavior, or you say good girl, you encourage, and if you do that, very, very soon your horse will touch with the nose, and next thing you see is the horse will touch with the foot, and then maybe even paw with the foot, and you just reward that.
Do
And
you
you
ever
build from there.
use food as a reward, Gabby?
Actually, with Maserati, I did not use food reward until he was 5.
Oh, okay.
He learned a lot of things without food reward, just happy praise and scratches. And I know now I'm gonna say something might be controversial. I think that horses value feeling that the human is sincerely happy more than food.
Mm-hmm. So that they can just pick up on that
Yes,
energy from
yes,
us.
yes, yes. If a horse feels that we are authentically happy and just seriously enjoying it, horses love that energy. And it's about that energy. But yeah, I get it. It can be difficult to present that and go with that energy to a horse if you're not sure yourself about what you're actually doing with your horse.
So, playing games, you mentioned
Yeah,
it's about changing your mindset from thinking, I'm going to work my horse, to I'm going to
yeah,
play with my horse. What
yeah.
benefits are there, Gabby? Because often with us humans, there has to be a benefit or reward from doing this. What does the horse get from this play session?
Well, first of all, I think it's about that the horse enjoys the session. And if the horse enjoys the session, I enjoy the session. And then it's a win-win because why do I have a horse? I want to enjoy my horse time. And also, if a horse enjoys a session, he's gonna learn so much faster. And now, through learning those games, I mean, with Maserati, since the beginning, I have kind of an attitude of playing games with him. He learns things like I show him once, the second time he got it. He
Wow.
learns with the speed of light in anything, also riding.
Yeah.
So if we get to a point that horses learn how to learn and enjoy learning because they know there's a reward to get, the progression is going to be so much faster. With anything, not just playing games, also riding.
And it's about having fun, of course, but it's about so much more than that, because tell us about the connection that you're building through playing and through playing games with the
Yeah.
horses.
So about the connection, let's first kind of define what is connection, because I think for a lot of people, connection might just be that kind of feeling of being connected in the thoughts. But connection comes from when the communication works, when the communication flows, when we understand each other.
Mm.
And I can build connection by communicating a very simple task to the horse. And it's if the question answer game works flawlessly with a horse. And if that works, I have connection. And I have connection training flying lead changes, for example. If a horse is listening intently what I explain, I have connection. It's not just when I sit with my horse in the pasture doing meditating that I have connection. It can be in anything. And it's by training or practicing that question answer game in a playful way.
Mm.
By nurturing that communication.
It's so interesting that you mentioned communication, because on Curious Equestrian, we've talked to lots of coaches and trainers. And for those who haven't listened to those episodes, do go back and have a listen and a watch,
Mm-hmm.
because they mention now that problems that owners are facing in 2025 is that horses have, quote unquote, bad manners and bad behaviours because they're being spoilt, they're not being taught good manners on the ground, in the field and on the yard. And actually, that people sort of skip through the groundwork and get straight on with the riding. But actually, by doing these games, we are really doing groundwork, aren't we, with our horses?
Yes.
And we're teaching them, as you mentioned, respect and to keep a distance and boundaries, things that we don't do when we're in the saddle, happily hacking or jumping or schooling.
Yeah.
So actually, it's helping to reinforce these behaviours on the ground.
Yes. And, for example, in my No Matter the Weather course, yes, there's some really fun tricks in there and games, but there are also very solid purpose tasks. Like there's one category in how to, about troubleshooting and manners in daily life. And I show in a very playful and logical way how to teach your horse respect of personal space without, back out of my space and you have to keep distance, without that stuff.
I'm only laughing. I'm not laughing because it's funny, because obviously it's not good to shout at any horse, but I'm
No.
laughing because we all know people like that, don't we? At our
Yes,
riding
yes.
schools, our yards, our livery yards, there are people that will flap and they will wave and they
Because they
will,
don't know.
gesture.
They don't know how to teach different. They don't know how to communicate with a horse effectively in a nice manner so the horse can understand.
Mm. And we talk about play and games that we've created and that you've created, Gabi, as humans, but talk us through horses in the wild. How do horses play in a herd?
So, I think adult horses don't play as much. It's more like the young stallions, the foals, and then especially as they grow up, the stallions. Mares are not as playful. They do sometimes, but not like stallions or, in human world geldings. They play a lot, and they play to practice actually protecting the mares. They play to practice fight. So it's a different motivation. It's different than how we would engage and play with a horse. Now, also, I mean, I'm not very much aware about scientific studies on that, but I know that primates, like monkeys, they play more like humans and they also use tools. But horses don't use tools, for example. But horses are still very intelligent in terms of how they can learn. And, you know, I think any horse, even the most serious horse, can learn to play in some sort. But we need to understand, like I said in the beginning, playing horses does not look like playing puppies.
Yes, and that's what I wanted to pick up on, because when I've
Yeah.
observed wild ponies on the Cambridgeshire Fens with Curious Equestrian, and even my own little herd of 3
Yeah.
horses, their play with human eyes is quite aggressive looking. You know, they will
Yeah.
rear up, they will
Yeah.
gallop, they will buck, they will bronk, they will strike out with their front hooves like to
Mhm.
punch the air, won't they? They will bite into
Yeah.
each other's necks. So I
Exactly. I
think
don't
it's
want to play like that with a horse.
so I think it's so significant that you say we can't play in the way that
No,
horses play with each other because it
no,
is
we cannot.
aggressive and
It's dangerous.
dangerous.
We're fragile.
So how do we communicate that these games and these tricks, Gabby, are playtime for horse and human?
So I think it all starts. Oftentimes people tell me, well, my horse doesn't seem to enjoy playing, it doesn't want to play, it doesn't look motivated. And my response is, don't wait for your horse to feel playful. You're gonna wait forever, especially if you have a serious mare. I have 3 mares. I love mares.
I've got a mare.
But mares are just not very playful. They're usually very serious.
Really?
Okay?
I'm only
Yeah.
looking shocked because mine acts like a stallion.
Yeah, I have one, Mayana,
She
my oldest. She's very playful, but she's an exception. She's playful like a Spanish stallion,
yes.
but she's not the norm. My other two, they're very serious girls. They want to do everything perfect. They want to be told exactly what to do. Then they love that. So if I wait for them to feel groovy and playful, I will wait forever. So I am kind of the leader in the relationship with my horse. Okay. So I am going to present the energy and the topic of the session. I'm going to draw the horse in my energy. And play or feeling playful with the horse is not about jumping around really wild. It's about the energy we have between each other. Do we have a playful attitude? Are we
Mm.
joyful? Can we laugh together? Can we not take each other's mistakes so seriously? You know? If the horse doesn't get it right away, can I laugh about it and say, okay, let's try again. It's not so bad. Or when I make a timing mistake or I'm clumsy and mishandle the rope, can the horse laugh about it and not take it so badly?
I'm so glad that you've mentioned that horses have a sense of humour because it's something that I've
Yeah, they
always
do.
thought. How have you read that in your own horses, Gabby? How do you read horse laughter and a horse sense of humour?
So, a lot of people say horses are not so inventive with games, and they usually are not on their own until we show them. Okay, but I've had to work once with a very intelligent gelding. He invented things.
Wow.
He actually invented new things to check if I would laugh about him. He loved it so much if I broke out and laughed about what he did. And he invented 2 things. He made me laugh so hard. One was I taught him to jump over blue barrels on the ground. And then one day he, cantered towards it and he stopped in front of it, looked at me. And then he kind of lifted his front legs and jumped over halfway, stopped and looked at me.
Looking for that
And I had to laugh
reaction.
so hard. And from that day on, jumping jumps halfway only was his favorite thing. And the second thing he invented was um, at the end of sessions, I would always allow my horses to roll. I would untack them and roll. And I was in the arena with one of my students, and I went to get the caca boy to collect the poop. And then my student said, Gabi, have a look. Look what your horse is doing. And he was laying flat on the ground, head on the ground, but turning his nose up like that. And look at me like, look what I do. Do I get a cookie for that? So Of course, was laughing again a lot, and I gave him a cookie. And from that day on, each day he would roll, I could say dead, and he played dead until I could say dead. He would lay down and play dead.
Wow.
So when horses know how to learn, we show them kind of a few things that they can do, and they really start to enjoy and get addicted to when we laugh. They sometimes come up with their own combinations of tricks.
I'm so glad that you've
It's so
mentioned it,
funny, yeah.
Gabby, because I've had a few of those moments with
Mm.
my own horses where we might be lunging and they have, I say spooked in inverted commas, because they weren't actually scared of someone carrying a chair down the road or, someone pushing a wheelbarrow. It's something the horses have seen every day. And yet they will go into a bucking frenzy, or they'll do a standing rear and then leap across the way and then bolt, and they'll be skipping along. And I'll be laughing my head off thinking, you're not really scared of that wheelbarrow that you've seen 100 times this week. And I will have that moment of laughter and engagement, knowing that the horses love my reaction and that exuberance and that enthusiasm coming from me in that shared moment. And I've always wondered to myself, is it just me that thinks my horse has a sense of humour? Is it just me that knows my horse is laughing along with me to say, ha ha, keep up with me if you can? And yet you have just shared that moment with me. And I think, yes, there is so much we don't know about horse emotion, isn't there?
Yeah, there is not much awareness. Um, but just like us, horses are mammals, sentient beings with emotions. We don't share exactly the same emotional systems, but close enough. And especially, just like us, horses are wired for social connection. Horses are herd animals, all right? And it is, well, common knowledge by now that horses also have mirror neurons. Mirror neurons that, are responsible to form those connections, to kind of have a sense of what the other being is also feeling.
Mm.
And this is why horses are so powerful in therapeutic settings, because they mirror and reflect the emotions and the energy we put out. And this is why I think if we want to have playful interactions with our horses or have a more playful energy between us, it starts with us.
Mm. And isn't that hard? And I say that because we are busy humans, aren't we? We've all
Yeah,
got
it
our own
is hard.
issues.
Mhm.
We're all holding down jobs and working really hard, and there's not enough hours in the day, and we're losing the light,
Yeah.
and we've got family commitments and friendship problems and all sorts going on. And yet we need to feel light-hearted and playful.
That's why I
What?
say it's not possible with the push of a button. No,
No.
stop.
Where do we start, Gabby? How do we
Oh my
suddenly
God.
become more light-hearted if we are someone who is a bit sort of serious or bogged down with
Oh,
life?
that is such a tough question. So I think if our mind is really heavy and clouded from our life and business and family and whatever, we should not try and do something very big and productive with our horses. So I think the first step
Mm.
is to take the pressure off ourselves.
Mhm.
That is the first thing, that we stop expecting from ourselves always peak performance and perfection. It's impossible. It's impossible to always get it perfect and right with horses. And mistakes are part of learning.
Mm.
And we all make mistakes. Don't ask me about mine in the past. What is important is we shouldn't ignore them. We should, yes, take them serious, but just remember, say, okay, I'm gonna do different in the future. But I think the first step towards being able to be more lighthearted is to take ourselves a little less serious, take the pressure off, and now allow ourselves to make some mistakes and take a few steps back as well.
And also, would you say to keep the play sessions short? We don't
Yeah.
have to. It's interesting, isn't it? Because I never forget advice in the past I've had is make sure you do half an hour, make sure you do 40 minutes. All these time frames, the horse isn't really working until you've reached 30 minutes. What
And
would you
end of
say?
note, and then
Yes. Oh my goodness. I've had moments where a horse has bolted and I've ended the session and thought, oh no, I haven't ended on a good note. But yet I haven't wanted to continue when the horse is in an erratic state of mind, or if
Mhm.
I'm in a stressed state of mind. What would you
Yeah.
say to those people that say, you have to end on a good note, you have to do this, you have to do
So
30 minutes?
I think what we're able to do with the horse depends a lot on our emotional state of the day and how much energy and mental clarity we have that day. And we need to be very aware about our emotional and energy battery when we go to a horse. So if my battery is very low, I'm gonna do super simple stuff, okay? Maybe I'm just going
Mm,
to sit with my horse and spend undemanding time, groom him, find his itchy spot, something just, where I can breathe and let go and just enjoy my horse. No pressure.
mm.
If I have good energy, then I can do a session. If I have a little more than no energy, I can, for example, pick a super simple trick task like rolling out the carpet. It's fun for me, it's fun for the horse.
Oh.
We have a fun interaction. I get a smile on my face, and I feel a bit better than before. But if I put so much pressure on myself that I have to do a proper session with my horse, I have to practice at least 3 tasks and ride for 40 minutes and end on a good note, otherwise I'm a
Mm,
failure. I'm just gonna be so miserable. And I think that's why the
mm.
first step is just take the pressure off.
No
And remember,
wonder.
why do I have a horse? It should be a positive and enjoyable part of my life, right?
And no wonder we're all so stressed when there is so much
Yeah.
judgment and there is so much pressure
Yes.
on us and there is, you
Yes.
should do this, you should do that. No wonder we're all feeling uptight when we go into a
Yeah.
session because we're thinking we have to hit certain targets
Yeah.
or time frames or achieve certain things with our horses when actually it shouldn't be about that, should it?
It shouldn't at all. And I think that kind of negative clutter in our mind is like a big cloud that prevents us from really connecting with our horse.
Mm,
And if horses notice we're not connected, we're kind of in our head, we are kind of with the judgment of other people, we are still in the past with our job, in the future with our family,
yeah.
they're gonna be distracted. They're not gonna be with us. They're not gonna be able to connect. And of course, we again have a frustrating session. So, yeah.
And I love, Gabby, that you say you end every session with the horse rolling, because, of course, a very natural movement for
If
them,
it works.
if it works. They're hot and they're sweaty. They love to roll in the mud if
Yeah.
they're anything like mine. And you have to let go of them looking pristine and perfect because they look
Yeah.
like swamp monsters, but they love to roll. But also,
Mhm.
that is so relaxing for them, isn't it? To release tension. What else do you do as
Yes.
part of your routine to bring in that relaxation for the horse and to make sure that the horse is enjoying the session as
Mhm.
well?
So, one thing I always do when I enter the arena is I always first walk around the arena left and right. And this has several benefits. One is, I walk around the arena and I check if the horse has some, worry spots that day. Even if the horse knows the arena for 5 years, it can be that there is a worry spot because there's a forest in the back and there's a bird in the bush and
Mm,
whatever. And that's okay. And just walk around. It also gives me the opportunity to feel for the horse, to connect and to check, okay, what kind of energy do we get from the horse that day? Does she feel more alive? Does she feel a bit more sleepy? Can we tune in each other? And this also gives me the opportunity, those kind of 10 minutes just walking, to ground myself, to
mm,
breathe, and to clear my mind.
mm.
So that
So
is kind of the
important
first part of my routine before I really go into the session.
because, of course, you won't be able to play if you're still holding on
Oh no,
to the stress of the
you
day.
can't force play. You can't force play. No.
And Gabby, we talk about schools and arenas, but if you're like me, I only have a field. Are these
Mm.
games, is it possible to do them out in the field with the horse?
So when I created my No Matter the Weather course, it was out of a personal emergency. So I have lived in France on a really big horse place from 2009 until 2022. I was mainly responsible for the place. I managed it. I took care for the horses, the students. I took horses in training, did courses, all that stuff. Then we moved back to Austria. And suddenly I was in a situation, I had no arena. So I felt at first I felt totally stuck with my horses, like I couldn't do anything anymore. On top, because of the big change, my horses
Mm.
suddenly were super herd bound. They couldn't take one out without everybody going totally bonkers. It was awful.
Oh, we've all been there. Oh.
Uh, so, and at one point, because my husband saw I got more and more depressed because I couldn't do what my passion was, and he said, "Well, you can't you can't you're not stuck. You can still do so many things in the shelter. Just think about small things that you can do. And if life gives you lemons, you got to make lemonade." And so I needed that kind of kick in the butt, say, "Hey, come on, think positive. What can you still do?" And that
Mm.
was kind of the birth of the No Matter the Weather games. So I came up with all these kind of fun little ideas that I can do in my shelter.
And I
Because
love
also my
that.
field is a slope. There's not one flat spot on my field.
And
it,
this is
yeah,
the problem, isn't it, with horse ownership? If you don't have an arena or a
yeah.
school
What do you
like
do?
me, and you have a field, for most of the year it's boggy and wet
Yes,
and you get stuck in the mud and
yes,
it's impossible to do anything until you get to summer. So
yes.
doing these small little games in a contained space, either like you say, a shelter or a stable or a small area of the field, the
Yeah,
one
or the
part of the field,
driveway, or
the
the yard, or
yeah,
whatever.
or the one part of the field that isn't muddy, which is what we've
Yes,
got at the
yeah,
moment. It's so important. And we talk about awful winters with storms and rain and boggy mud and high winds. And actually, that can make training and playing with our horses very difficult. But how
yes, and also
can
very
we
unpleasant.
it really is. And it's because also a lot of the time, like today, we look out the window, it's grey, it's gloomy. We don't feel like stepping outside and doing
Hmm.
any more than we have to, any more than the feed rounds and the hay rounds, because it's a horrible day outside. Gabby,
Hmm.
how can we find the motivation to play with our horses all year round, no matter the weather, as you
Yes.
say?
So the more of those little games I came up with, the more addicted I got to them too, and the more creative I got. So at first, my mind was like, "Oh my god, everything is so horrible, and I'm so poor. I have no arena, and the weather is bad. My field is muddy." So I was really stuck in that mindset.
Mm.
And I came up with, I think, two things at first: carrot stretches and dance with me. So I did these two things, and I soon noticed, oh, that is actually pleasant, and I enjoy it. So I got the smile back on my face, and that actually motivated me to often go to my horse, just spend these 10 minutes doing a little purposeful something. Just
Mm.
something I could put my focus on, something I could communicate with my horse, where I could then reward the horse because the horse got it. And we all had very soon, very quickly, a much better mood.
And I
So
love
it becomes self reinforcing somehow.
we always associate winter as the difficult months of
Mm.
weather, but actually summer can be just as challenging, can't it? And I know you talk about
Mm.
mosquitoes and flies and heat waves and,
Oh,
sweat pouring
yes.
from our faces and our horses. It can
Yeah.
actually be just as
Yes.
challenging when we reach summer too.
Just as challenging. Yeah. Yes.
So
So I also
how do
have
we
a few
battle the
summer
heat?
games.
Yeah, how do we battle the heat, Gabby, in that
Uh,
situation?
so, well, I don't ride when it is so hot. I usually get up super, super early and ride, but if that isn't possible, I also have a few short games that I can do with my horses where they don't really have to move. So they don't sweat, I don't sweat. We both have fun. And oftentimes there's water involved.
Yes.
Like we
Yes.
make a shower party, or I have a bucket with pieces of apple in that they have to catch out, something like that. Just little things to occupy their brain, because when it is so hot, they just stand for hours and hours and hours in the shelter, and it's just not fun at all. Just like permanent rein, like for 12 hours rein, is just no fun at all. And they just love the little mental engagement when they come in the shed to play a few games with them.
And I was going to ask you about that mental engagement, because
Mhm.
so often we're looking at our horses and saying, oh, we need to build up that muscle in their hind and we
Mhm.
need to get them fit for this competition. But actually, how important is it for our horses to keep mentally stimulated in that way?
Yeah. So I always say there are three areas of horse training. Most people focus on one, maximum two.
Mm,
And one is the physical, like get the horse strong and fit and all that stuff. And the other one is the mental, that the horse knows the stuff. And then we have the emotional, the connection, the motivation, the trust, the respect, and all that stuff. And to have, it is easy to kind of manage a horse's body, to make a horse's body. But if you don't have the horse's mind and heart, you will always feel like the horse would rather be with his friends. You're constantly fighting that low level resistance. You constantly have the feeling the horse looking at the window, he would rather not. You always have to ask
mm.
twice, always this kind of low friction moments. Or the horse is shut down, not really engaging with you. And then it doesn't feel really enjoyable. So, and this is why having mental connection, emotional connection is so important, because then the horse is thinking about the task, is thinking about the body, is thinking about the maneuver. And then you have a horse that really shines from the inside out.
I wonder in the wild, I'm just thinking about the wild horse, and
Yeah.
actually, all the challenges they would face that would involve them using their minds. They would have to choose, wouldn't they, which path to take along the mountain trek that
Yeah.
would keep them safe. They would have to think about how to cross
Mhm.
a river. They would have to do a lot of thinking and problem solving in the
Yeah,
herd.
exactly.
And now they stand in a box field
Mhm.
or they stand in a stable with no challenges to keep
Yeah.
their minds occupied.
Mhm.
And actually, we talk about keeping them out 24/7 or giving them maximum turnout time for their physicality, don't we? For them to be able to roam and explore and to be
Yeah.
able to canter or gallop when they want. But actually, we don't think of it in terms of what challenges can they problem solve when
Yes.
they're out in the
Mhm.
field.
That is true. And if you put a horse in a square paddock with no trees and no nothing, just a fence around, it's boring. And the
Mm.
horse doesn't have to problem solve at all. It doesn't have to think on its own. And horses in our domestic life, the food comes always at the same hour. They don't have to problem solve. They don't have to think for their survival. They don't really have to use the brain they had to use in the wild, and then life becomes quite boring to horses.
And actually, many of your games that you've created, all 77 of them, they are problem solving, aren't they?
Yeah, yes. And I was quite impressed because, I have four horses and how they learn different games really differently. For example, rolling out the carpet. So it's actually really super simple. You take a few treats, you roll it up in a carpet, and then as the horse unrolls the carpet, it finds the treats. So he kind of has to use his smell to problem solve how to get the treat.
Oh.
And Maserati, he's super good in problem solving. He doesn't get frustrated if it doesn't work right away. And he solved it like 2 minutes. He had it out. Okay. Then my Tara girl, she's a very serious mare. She is best if I tell her exactly what to do. And then she's super light, super attentive. And it's like, I'm a good girl, right? But she wants me to tell her what to do. She's not good in
Oh.
problem solving. She did not figure out the carpet puzzle. She got really
Oh.
frustrated by it. So horses have really different personalities. She excels at other things though, but Maserati is not so good. Maserati is not so good with just doing what I say.
But Maserati's more creative, it
Yes,
sounds.
he's more creative.
Isn't it brilliant? I mean, we have a little miniature horse who's a rescue called Diesel, and he's worked out how to open the stable door, as some
Oh my
horses
goodness.
do. And he gets his teeth and he gets his nose, and he uses a combination of his teeth and his wiggly nose, and he
Mhm.
can open and he can also open and close the drop bar as well, the bar at the bottom of the door. And he
Oh
knows
man.
how to lock us in the stable.
Yes.
And talking about that sense of humour
Oh
again,
my
we're
gosh.
sure
Yes.
he does it to laugh at us because
Mhm.
he knows that we're going to laugh and we're going to have to try and work our way by using
That
a
is so
broom to get
hilarious.
out of the
Uh-huh.
stable again. And
Yes.
it's incredible how they are so clever, and yet we
Yes.
don't judge them in that way. We're looking at their movement and their
Mhm.
conformation and
Yeah.
their ability to transition in schooling work, aren't we? But we're
Yeah.
not looking at their ability to be creative, and yet
Yeah.
they have such a huge capacity to be
Yeah.
creative.
And they're also, I mean, they're so intelligent and they have such different personalities, just like us as well. And each horse has their own strengths and weaknesses. And we should appreciate that and not just like Tara, she's not very stress resistant and she easily gets frustrated, but she's such a good girl. She learns so easy if I'm clear in my communication. So I focus on that, not on the other part. In Maserati, he's brilliant in his sense of humor and his creativity and his his ability to figure things out. But he's not so good just to do what I say. Because like, why?
Yeah.
So it's up to us to bring out the best in our horses.
And to let them be able to express themselves,
Yes.
their humour, their personality, and their
Yeah.
intelligence. So interesting. I know that one thing that I've got from our chat, Gabby, is that I'm going to be going to buy a roll of cheap carpets so that I can try the carpet test on the
Oh,
horses.
it is so fun, that game.
I want to be seeing them rolling it out in the field and seeing
Yeah.
how they react. But what other activity, what other game have you created, Gabby, that we as beginners can do today, whatever the weather?
I really well. um, Another really favorite one of people who have the no matter the weather course is to teach the horse to distinguish colors.
Oh.
So horses see colors different than us, right? And
Mhm.
the two colors they see the best is blue and yellow. Maybe you know about that
Ah,
already.
yes,
They
yeah.
don't see green and red so much. It just appears brown, both of them, kind of.
Mm.
But blue and yellow, they can distinguish really easy.
Oh, wow.
So I got myself two patches from Doctrine, just a blue and a yellow circle. And I taught the horse blue to touch it and get a treat. Then taught him yellow, touch it, get a treat. And then I showed him both and just said one color. And
Oh.
it is so interesting to see. They look at it, you see them thinking, and they touch the right thing.
Wow.
Yes. And
Incredible.
some people who got the course took it so far because, of course, the husbands always say, oh, that's by accident. You're just holding one a little bit closer to your horse. You're giving a secret cue. So they put the patches on the ground, asked the horse to back up, hands behind their own back, and just said the color. And the horse went forward and touched the right color. So that is also a really nice one to kind of experiment and see how quickly horses learn and problem solve.
And
It's
it's
super fun.
fascinating for us as well,
Yeah.
isn't it? Because
And
it's
it's
like
a super
magic.
neat
It's like
trick
a
to show
magic
to
trick.
family.
My horse can do magic. Just look at
Yeah.
us. And that is incredible, isn't it? And
Mhm.
and we talk about trick training with dogs, and we've started to, I think, a lot of us have started to think about trick training with our horses. However, if we actually see it not as trick training, but as playing and as games and as fun, and it takes that pressure off, doesn't it? Because I
Mhm.
know that
Yes.
previously I've thought, oh, I'd love to teach the horses how to bow, because
Yeah.
such a beautiful, majestic image, isn't it? The horse bowing down. But then I've abandoned that because I've thought, oh, it's really difficult and it requires, consistent training. And I guess it's the pressure of it has made me back out of that and think, oh, it's such a pressure.
Yeah.
Maybe they won't do it. Oh, and then I've just stuck with the normal sort of carrot
Yeah.
stretches. But actually, if
Mm.
we break it down and take that pressure off and think, we're just going to
Mhm.
have fun. And if we learn
Yeah.
something, then that's
Yeah.
part of it.
And
Actually,
so
it makes it less pressured.
mm, exactly. And so strange enough, I don't find those classic games or tricks like the Spanish hook or the
Mm.
bow or the reference or these things, they don't motivate me at all. I don't find them fun.
I think you've hit the nail on the head, Gabby. I think that's what I was trying to say, is that it
And
wasn't my thing. Yeah, it didn't
no,
motivate
and
me.
so many people want to teach the horse to lay down. Why?
Mm.
You know, if I teach the horse to lay down in a forceful way, oftentimes, the ropes involved make the horse lay
Oh,
down. It's very submissive. So if a horse lays down in front of a human, for me, it should be voluntary, sign of trust. It's not a trick I want to teach the horse.
no. And
Yeah.
it's breathtaking, isn't it, when they do voluntarily lay down
Yes. It's
or
such a
rest their
gift.
heads on us. Yeah, a
Yeah.
gift. And that is the beauty of it, and something that we shouldn't take
Mm,
for granted. And
mm,
I think that's so important for you to mention that actually it should come from the horse and not be something that we impose on them.
yeah. And sometimes I see videos or pictures of, people standing on the horses laying down and even with a whip clacking. Um, that for me, it really does not respect the dignity of the horse. I do not want to know how that was taught.
Mm.
And for
And now we
me
have to think,
to
don't we?
yeah,
We have to trace it back and think, how was that horse trained in that
yes,
scenario?
yes. Exactly. For me, the horse should always shine, and dignity of the horse, bring out the personality of the horse, is the most important. And if I have a horse who's talented for Spanish walk and starts to offer it, yeah, I'm going to nurture it and bring it forward. If I have a horse like that gelding I told you about, who lays down and plays dead, I'm going to take it. And it's fun. But if I have a horse like my Tara girl, who is a more insecure personality and he feels vulnerable to lay down, I'm not going to force it. I'm not going
Mm.
to force it just because it's a fancy trick,
Have you
just
seen,
because I
Gabby,
want to have it.
with your playing and your trick training and your sessions, have you seen any transformations of horses where their behaviour has improved or their personality has improved and they've become better horses because of the games that you play with them?
Um, so there are kind of two aspects of
Yeah.
how I play games. There are little games I play in the shelter, which are more like really based on positive reinforcement and fun tricks. But there are also playful elements I put into the real sessions with my horses. I
Mhm.
always visualize tasks both on the ground and when riding, with cones, with poles, with all sort of visual markers. And with those little tricks in particular, with my mare Salima, I got her when she was 9. She was a brood mare, highly sensitive horse, very little handled, and she was very skeptical of people. She would either be shut down, hard to catch, or
Mm.
she would explode like popcorn. So she had like no trust in communicating with people. And those games, they really made her shine. She she would always, yeah, she would be obedient and nice, but now she's asking to play. She looks at me and you can see the personality in her eyes.
Oh.
Okay? She dares to look at me, she talks to me, she sometimes dares to throw in a joke or make a proposition of her own. And that from a horse that was very skeptical with people, very shy, very intimidated, and especially who did not dare to express her own opinion. So these kind of things, the games, they're really fantastic to get horses out of shutdown
Mm.
and to
And
find much more trust playing with people.
so many horses are in shutdown now, aren't
Yes.
they? And
Yeah.
mistrusting of people,
Mhm.
sadly, because of the different starts in life that they have either at different
Yeah.
yards or different
Yeah.
dealers that ruin horses early on in their lives.
Yeah. Or just the attitude of he has to be obedient, just
Mm,
make him do it. Or that the thinking he's doing it on purpose to test my leadership. And this often gives people the validation to be very firm on their horse. I think this is still so common. It's just make him be obedient, show him who is boss. And that is so sad because it doesn't recognize the horse as the being it is, really. Because, when horses are not doing what you want, why? It's because they don't understand mostly, because they're unsure, or because you didn't communicate clearly, not because they're being dominant.
mm. And that's what I love, Gabby, about your sessions is that it's about finding out what works for the individual
Mhm.
personality of the horse and finding out what they enjoy, not about what we want to teach the horse and
Yes.
not about dominance or obedience. It's about what the horse wants to do. So do you often shape your sessions around actually if a horse doesn't enjoy that particular game, you'll swap to something else that they do.
Yeah, so I differentiate between my play sessions, where it's more casual, and between sessions of education training in the arena. Okay, so in the play sessions, each of my 4 horses have their special tasks they love the most. Where they have the particular talents, okay? And I will, because the purpose there is to be lighthearted, to have a good interaction with them, I will more focus on the things they want to play and they're good at. But, when it's about giving a horse a really good education, I have to be thorough. I cannot just drop something because the horse doesn't like it. But then I think about how can I present that topic in a way so the horse can understand, can mentally engage, and have a good learning experience. So there it is up to me as a trainer to present questions in a way so the horse can understand.
Again, back to that communication.
Yes. We have to become a good communicator and not always blame the horse it doesn't get it or doesn't want it. It's us.
And Gabi, how often should we be in a week? And I'm sure there's no right or wrong answer, but in a week, how often should we be playing with our horses?
There's no right or wrong answer. So we should always have a playful attitude.
Yeah.
Even if we have a riding session with the horse where we seriously advance some skills, I will always have my visual patterns out there. And I will always have kind of, what is important if we play games is to have a very clear step-by-step process. So that I have small steps I work towards, I can reward the horse, they're small enough so the horse can get it. Now, how often to do those play sessions with a horse? I like to have a balanced weekly schedule during times where I can use my arena and kind of say, okay, one session we work in the arena, we really advance the riding. Then we go on a trail walk and then we do some groundwork and free play, for example. But again, there it really depends on the personality of the horse because some horses, they need more consistency and they would get thrown off by too much variety and play. And other horses, if you give them too much consistency, they get bored. They need more play. So we need to find what works for the horse.
It always comes back down to that individual horse, doesn't it?
Yes.
And for those who want some inspiration, Gabi does have her very own course. Gabi, tell us where we can find you and book onto the course for those listening if they want some directions and they want access to your 77 games. So if you want to follow me in general, the best place is on Facebook, my Facebook page, Gabi Neurohr, Understanding Horses. This is where I post the most regular content and inspiring articles and videos and reels and whatnot. And I actually do have a range of online courses, and No Matter the Weather is just one of them. And if you want to have that No Matter the Weather course, I do have a special link here for the Curious Equestrian podcast, and that is, well, it's a very long one. It's myoperationdreamers.com/Curious Equestrian No Matter the Weather. And if you Google No Matter the Weather, you should find a link where you can get the course. Amazing. Thank you so much. And you are very generously giving away free access to one lucky listener, aren't you, Gabi? What will they get? Who will the lucky prize winner be and what will they get? So my No Matter the Weather course has the 77 short and purposeful exercise or games you can do with your horse if you have no arena, even if the weather is bad, if you only have a shelter, and you have no time especially. We have different categories in the games. There is, for example, relationship and connection. There's troubleshooting and manners. We have exercise for mobility and body awareness. We have advancing riding without riding. And we have a ton of fun tricks to teach. So there's a whole range of different topics in that course. And actually, that course has become my client's absolute favorite. It just makes people smile and creates happy horses. Well, thank you so much for giving away one free access course to one of our lovely listeners. We really appreciate it. Gabi, thank you so much for coming on Curious Equestrian. It was my pleasure chatting with you. It was very nice. Thank you so much for listening to and watching Curious Equestrian. If you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube so that you don't miss an episode and all that's coming your way, or you can subscribe to us on whatever podcast platform you listen. If you could leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, that would really help us to find lots more lovely listeners. And you can also follow us on Instagram @Curious Equestrian Podcast. We'll see you next time.